Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Polly Spiros. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at FuelCycle, and I am here with our partner and colleague, Matt Ayers. We are very excited today to be talking about anticipating customers' needs, staying ahead in a dynamic market. I am going to, Matt, I'm going to ask you to kind of introduce yourself first, if you could, so that we can kind of know your background a little bit, and then we can get started in our conversation.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Polly. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be talking to you. I'm Matt. I'm a Senior Vice President at Material, and I do lots of different things here, but primarily my role is to lead all of our qualitative work and our communities work, which is why I've been connected to our friends at FuelCycle and to Polly.
Right. Thank you. You want to share a couple things about Material?
Yeah, sure. So some of you are probably familiar with Material, and others of you probably don't know it very well at all. Material itself is a relatively new brand. It's only existed for the past 3 or 4 years, but it represents the coming together of 13 different agencies that do lots of different things. We are resolutely one company and not a holding company. And now, although our heritage and still the core of our work is in strategy and insights and understanding people, we create experiences for clients. So that could involve understanding an audience and building a product, or understanding an audience well and then helping a client build some communications or to innovate. So yeah, it's been a busy journey over the past 10 years or so as we've aggregated all of these capabilities. But now we feel like we're in a really exciting place and able to deliver on the promise that it is shown on the screen on the left, to understand people and turn that understanding into better decisions for our clients.
Thank you. I really like that diagram that Material uses. I love the build, the design, the build. I love the way that looks. Thanks, Matt. And it's great to be here with you today to have this conversation. I'll share a little bit about FuelCycle. FuelCycle is a research technology partner, and we have a big piece of tech that's called the Research Engine. It is very innovative, and it is also extremely extensible. So big research teams in large brands do all the research on the FuelCycle Research Engine, whether it be qualitative, agile, quantitative. You can launch to multiple different audiences. So love to talk to you. And Matt and I would be more than happy to talk to anyone who would like to have a conversation about Material or FuelCycle and how we work together too. So thank you again for being here. We are very we have a topic that is really a big topic. We are going to be talking about anticipating customers' needs and staying ahead in a dynamic market. And what I was kind of thinking about this morning, and it made me chuckle because, Matt, we've been doing market research, not you and I, but our predecessors, for really 50 to 70 years. The market research practice has kind of been going. And for all that time, I think that professional services firms and researchers have been working on trying to figure out how to meet customers' needs. So despite all that time, today you and I are going to knock this out in 30 minutes. So let's give it a try. And we're going to talk about kind of 3 main topics. And the first is really the trends that Matt and I both have seen in the past, say, 36 to 60 months in terms of customers' needs and how those needs are evolving and changing. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges that researchers and insights providers have really anticipating customers' needs and some of the challenges within our customer organizations. And then finally, we're going to take out our crystal balls and we're going to talk a little bit about the future and how we can be better prepared to meet our customers' needs in the future. So I'll get started. I'm gonna throw it out to you, Matt, and then I'll also comment on it. But so what have you seen in terms? You work with a lot of customers. I know you have a big portfolio of customers in all kinds of really different verticals. What kinds of trends have you seen in terms of customers' needs, how they've changed, say, in the past 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously been a fascinating and tumultuous time in general over the past 3 to 5 years. And I think the market research and the insights industry is no exception. And what we've experienced is similar to what lots of other people experience. So in some ways, so much has changed. And yet in other ways, there are some core fundamental truths that remain the same. And I guess to be a little bit more specific, what I mean by that is that I think in our industry, the tools have changed and are continuing to rapidly evolve. Some of the techniques have changed, some of our processes have changed, the way our businesses and our clients' businesses are structured has changed. But fundamentally, and I guess thankfully for us and probably for everyone listening to this call, crucially, the need to understand people is ever present, and if anything, is only increasing. And I think all of our clients who understand their audiences well make better decisions. So it's funny, we're sort of in this period of everything changing and the world changing, and yet the most important thing staying exactly the same. I guess to be a little bit more specific, the kinds of things that I hear from our customers are probably the kinds of things that I was hearing 5 years ago and will hear in 5 years' time, but just with slightly different flavors. So things like do more with less, be faster, use technology better, be more useful. And those things are different now, but yeah, I guess the same core needs that we were hearing 3 years ago and 5 years ago, and we'll hear again in the future.
100%. I echo everything you said, and I have an interesting perspective because in material uses technology to meet customers' needs and different insights approaches. The res tech space is becoming very crowded. There's lots of great tools out there, really great solutions. I think innovation, everybody is very excited about what's going to happen next. And we are now really excited about AI and how that's going to change the way we do research. So there's all kinds of innovation. One of the things that I think that is a customer need that goes along with your do more with less is I think procurement now is also becoming very savvy because they're seeing, researchers are curious people, and they like to adopt technology too. And so I think that we got really excited, when the cloud started providing all of these SaaS applications or cloud-based applications, and we're like, I want to try that one, I want to try that one. And there was some duplication and there, kind of some overlap. And where procurement, I think, used to be like, okay, we got to cut this, we got to cut that. Now, I think they're becoming very savvy and they're helping research teams. And sometimes it's a sourcing manager. It doesn't, people think procurement, you say that and they think one thing. Sourcing managers, sourcing assistants. They say, look, you've got these 5 pieces of tech. Do they all do the same thing? Do they do different things? Do you need all 5? And I think there is some overlap, and I think that's where, for the first time, I'm like kind of excited about procurement saying, hey, look, let's take a look at everything you've got and see if you can achieve your quantitative objectives, your qualitative objectives with these 3 versus these 8. So I think that that's one need that customers, in terms of doing more with less, I think we're going to have to face the fact that consolidation is probably going to be a part of our future. And we're going to have to make some choices. I think that those res tech tools that are most extensible and able to do a number of things so that throughout a customer organization, they can use these different tools. And you can have different using groups, whether it's UX, CX, MRX, and they can all be tapping into the same tool. I do think that that's probably something that we'll see more and more of. I don't know if you see.
No, I completely agree. I think I guess the key thing that we're being pushed on at the moment is to be more useful. And I think in some respects, with hindsight, the insights industry had become complacent. We sort of moved from this world where a long time ago, we were really just providing data to our clients. And then we were providing insights based on that data and that understanding. And that was a big step forward. And agencies that provided insight were great. And then really clients and agencies felt like we had to do more than just have a PowerPoint slide that provided recommendations. So we moved to having a beautifully designed PowerPoint presentation or a video or a poster, and we got a bit more creative with how we were disseminating information. But I think now we're at another tipping point where that isn't enough. The role of an insights agency and the role of an insights team within a brand is not just to run a series of separate projects and provide feedback. It's to create a kind of ongoing system of learning, to provide continuous strategy, and not just provide that strategy, but also to take the next step and help for agencies to help their clients use that strategy and to implement that strategy and activate it against it. So that could be creating things, and then once those things are created, having a system in place that can track the success of those programs. So I think there's yeah, a push coming, and it feels like we're in it at the moment where we need to leverage the kind of technology that our friends at Fuel Cycle offer in combination with the kind of partnership that agencies like Material offer in order to um, provide brands with the kind of guidance they need to navigate this space. And it's not just get a brief, write a proposal, do a project. It's enter into an ongoing partnership where you're able to deliver that much more closely and consistently.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if professional service firms where they're really, the MRA, the Market Research Agency, if they're uniquely positioned to help brands make choices about their res tech, because the reality is, there are going to be agile solutions that are somewhere between DIT and DIY. There's going to be DIY, and then there's going to be full service. There's always going to be those projects, those long-term initiatives, fully blown engagements that really you want a full service market research agency to handle that, just because of the breadth of the project, because you need the professional experience. And I wonder if another way that the MRA is playing a part in customer learning is helping them sort of wade through all of these different solutions when they do need to do a more agile or DIY approach to their research. Have you seen any of that? Have you been advising your clients at all and be like, you may want to use that for that team? Have you had any conversations like that with them?
Definitely. And we still find when we get briefs and we get on the phone with our potential customers and we talk to them and we say, who else are you speaking to? And often clients feel like the only way they can find out about new agencies is to Google. And they have such a limited understanding, an understandable limited understanding of what people can do and how they can help them, that their RFPs get siloed, and then they come to agencies with a very specific set of requests, and it becomes very difficult for agencies to react back with what they think is the best way to approach things. And it may be that we get a brief to do some qual, and actually we think, hey, you don't need a standalone qual project. What you need is a community, and that will enable you to do all these things. But at that stage, it's almost too late. So I think if I was in a client's shoes, I would be looking to find a roster of agencies that were really great strategic partners that could help me navigate this constantly evolving and changing field of technology, and work out ways to implement it best. And I think from our experience working with the Fuel Cycle platform, they sort of come at that same challenge from a technological perspective. So whereas an agency like Material is designed to help clients navigate how to make those decisions, a company like Fuel Cycle provides the technology that makes it easy for clients to make those decisions themselves.
What's really funny is so in order, when you work for Fuel Cycle, you have to know a lot about the res tech space, because there are a number of different solutions within our ecosystem, within our research engine. And the research engine is what we call it. It's an ecosystem. It's a big platform. It's a big platform, does a lot of things. And it's kind of an interesting challenge staying on top of all the solutions that are out there right now. I mean, sometimes I'm in a client meeting and they'll be like, what can you tell me about X, a new agile or mobile provider? I'm like, and I'm literally Googling them. They've been around for half a year, didn't even know that they had any traction yet. And so, I mean, that's one of the things that you really, staying ahead of customer needs, you need to really be informed. You need to make a commitment to stay on top of all the new solutions that are being idea. They have access to some coding and they launch an idea and they get a couple customers. And that's great. And I'm hats off to those solutions. But when you're repping a big platform that does a lot of things, you got to stay on top of it. And that's really also servicing your customer to understand what else is out there. And I'm curious, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, sorry to interrupt. I think it's a really interesting point. And, we're talking about challenges. I think to me, it feels as though in the past, the key challenge was uncovering the right information. It was quite hard to get feedback and to really understand what people were thinking and what people are doing. And now there's such a wealth of information available through so many different sources of behavioral data, of analytic data, of direct asking data, of data through communities, that really the challenge is having this continuous stream of data and using it effectively. So it's a much better challenge to have, but it's still definitely a challenge. And I think for me, that probably leads to a couple of key implications. One is what I referred to earlier about this need to move away from running very discrete, separate projects in a kind of chronology where you slowly build on understanding over time and move towards creating this multi-pronged, ongoing system of learning that is constantly fueled by external sources and constantly helps you kind of spit out different bits of insight. And then I think the second implication of this wealth of data constantly being available is that we need to be, as an industry, much more judicious about how we use our budgets. Having all this data and having all this data continuously available means that we should have a much higher kind of general base understanding of our audience. So it shouldn't need a huge strategic foundational study to understand who our customer is, because we're talking to them all the time. We understand what they're buying, what adverts they're looking at, how they're reacting to those adverts. And the implication of that is that not every study needs to be a huge foundational strategic project. And I think it's hard to admit that, and it's hard to design RFPs around that belief. But I think we would all do better if we thought really carefully about, is this a set of objectives that could be satisfied by good enough research? Or is this a set of objectives that needs to be satisfied by truly foundational research? I was speaking to a prospect a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying, hey, we've got, it's a great brand, but it's a little bit tired, and we need to do a future of the brand study, and it's going to be this huge foundational qual study, and we want to get it done by Christmas, and our budget's $50,000. And to me, that was a kind of example of not really understanding this challenge that we're in, where there are some studies where $50,000 is too much. You don't need to spend much time. You can be quick and you can be scrappy. And then there are other times where you can't be, and you need to be very detailed and thorough and rigorous. And I think in the face of all this data coming at us and coming at our clients, it's become hard to be as judicious as we need to be. And I think that is a sort of ongoing challenge that some people are managing to get ahead of, but lots of people still need more work on.
So I think if we were to wrap up sort of this part of the conversation, we would say that one of the things that's really needed is courage, and to really be able to kind of speak truth to power and be willing to recognize that it might not be those large, foundational studies that maybe we were at one time accustomed to. And we like, right? Because as practitioners, that's the kind of work that we love to do. So I do want to, and I hate to go back to the pandemic, because I've really tried to avoid talking about the pandemic as much as possible, but something did happen. It was an inflection point for researchers, and particularly researchers in big brands. It was a time where leadership needed to understand what would stick, what wouldn't stick. Things were changing, pivoting so quickly. And then all of a sudden, researchers were finding themselves at a table that they may not have had access to before. They were being relied on to, almost as though they had a crystal ball. Talk to the market research team. They know what's happening. And the market research team would have probably said, listen, I can't tell the future, but I understand our customers. I understand the consumer. And that position gave them a voice with strategic leadership and impacting actionable insights that they maybe never had before. And I'm wondering, do you think that will continue? Do you think that we will embrace to have a seat at the table? Or do you think that we will, because there's certain skills and comfort levels that need to come with that, right? The storytelling and the ability to connect those dots, because CEOs and C-levels, they don't have a lot of time to read 40-page slide decks. They needed compact, fast story told, a story told. This will take us into what's changing. What are the challenges and what's changing? Do you think we'll be able to embrace that and maintain that level at the strategic table? Are you on mute? Oh, you're on
Um,
mute, I think.
oh, God, sorry.
No
Even
worries.
after 3 years since COVID, I still managed to mute myself in the middle of a conversation.
Me
Um,
too. I do it all the time.
yeah, no, I think your analysis is spot on. I think it's the insights teams and the clients we work with are in a fascinating place. We're really seeing people moving from being isolated insights groups within an organization into existing as integrated or, if not integrated, at least deeply connected groups that are closely working with marketing teams and product teams and other teams. And that the role of insights isn't necessarily to get briefed, go away, do a load of work, and come back with a big reveal and share out some findings. But it's much more to bring stakeholders from the marketing team or from the product team along the journey with them, allowing them to input into the process and to learn throughout, and then getting to the end and not necessarily revealing the answer, because hopefully by that stage everyone already knows, but being in a much better position to act on the insights that we've learned and to activate them. And that is it sounds like a subtle change, but I think it's actually really fundamental and will totally change the way that agencies work with clients and the insights teams within clients work with their stakeholders.
I also think that it requires a bit of a shift in the skill set of the market research. Because analytical skills, your kind of analytical horsepower, your ability to collate massive amounts of data and kind of make it more palatable, right? In a final report. But you never necessarily had to go beyond and make a recommendation. Really a recommendation that the strategy of the company would take. That's exposure that market researchers may not have had in the past. The best ones always have.
Yeah.
The most effective market research teams, whether it be UX teams, CX teams, they've always been willing to shoulder that burden of taking a position and a POV. When I was trained as a practitioner, it was absolutely anathema to take a POV or a position. Don't do that. First of all, you have to have plausible deniability, because if the execution isn't good, your data can be great if they can't execute on it. So there was always that. And then the other thing I learned, and I'll never forget, I had a mentor, my first practitioner role, and she said, Polly, the secret to this business is being able to deliver disagreeable news agreeably. If you can do that, you're gonna be special in the market research field. And I'm like, I don't understand it, because sometimes I think it's difficult to deliver bad news. No one wants to be told that their baby's ugly, and I think that market research teams have figured out how to couch that conversation, and have said, well, listen, we can kind of say A, B, C, D, and which one the audience liked, and you know what, let's just go higher Ipsos, or let's just go, and plausible deniability kicks in. It's like, I don't really want to take this potentially this position of acrimony, or a difficult position, where the pandemic changed all that, because there was no time to go hire a big firm to do research, and that's Agile really accelerated, and that's where the kind of smaller studies that you are referring to, creating a daisy chain of continuous learning, as opposed to this big study takes a half a year and $500,000
Yeah.
in 10 countries. So I think that's something that is changing, and it's a challenge for current researchers in a big brand or a big company. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've seen.
I completely agree. I think, firstly, I think learning how to share bad news to people is a good life skill, let alone a good skill in our industry. But I agree with what you're saying. I think historically, if you look at the insights process and you think about the sort of setup and project design and planning, and then the act of gathering information, whether it's conducting focus groups or running a survey, and then the final piece being the delivery of the insights at the end. I think historically our industry has placed all the emphasis on the middle bit. People were proud to be the best moderator or to have the smartest analytics teams, and that was the craft and what clients paid for and what agencies sold themselves on. And I think that's still important, but what we're seeing now is a sort of flipping of that. And there's much less time spent on the middle piece, because there are tech-enabled solutions that allow us to do things more cheaply, more quickly. And Instead, we're spending much more time at the beginning of the process and at the end of the process. So at the beginning of the process, the skill now is being really smart about which streams of data you need to collate in order to understand your objectives best, whether that's a community or a quant survey or some social analytics or anything else. And then a load more time is being spent at the end of the process when you're not just presenting back and saying, hey, here's the data and this is what we think, but you're actually turning the information and the insights that you've uncovered into a plan, and you're activating against it and you're doing things with it. And that pressure is much greater now that there's a little bit less emphasis on the star moderator and the analytics team in the middle.
It's so right. And I also want to call out now AI, right? Because star moderator, star analytics, data scientist, star writer. We had really skilled report writers, and that some of that analytics will be handled now by generative AI. And I am absolutely a Twitter with excitement about what that can do. Now, naturally, at Fuel Cycle, our lens is technology. So we're very comfortable with ushering in new technology. I am curious if, professional services firms feel the same way, or because I think that, sometimes I'll never forget when I was at Dynata, I remember one of the leaders at SSI, remember the old SSI survey sampling, and they had these big magnetic tapes. And the only reason why, this is way before I worked there, but there was a room that they kept all these tapes in. That was the random digit dial tapes. And I remember hearing a story from one of our lead researchers, marvelous Jackie Lord, fantastic person. She's like, I remember when leadership was saying, if this massive big market research agency ever goes online, I'll eat my hat. Well, that was way before you and I were in the workforce, but it's all online now. Quite a bit of it is online. And while we do still have some probability sampling and it's statistically significant sampling, that's really polling and more policy work. It's really online. And so now if that was difficult to embrace, how are market research agencies, market researchers, professionals, true professionals, how are they going to embrace and how are they going to feel about AI and finding that the appropriate overlap, the appropriate space where the researcher uses AI to be more effective? Love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the conversation we're having at the start of this about learning how to be judicious. And there are totally times where you don't need a human's input. And there are lots of simple research projects that previously were really inefficiently executed. And now there are fantastic ways to achieve those goals fast. But there are lots of projects that aren't like that, where you do need a strategist and you do need a moderator and you need to sit with someone in their kitchen to fully understand their needs and their experiences. Or you need a really smartly crafted survey that an AI system wouldn't yet be able to manage. And so I think that the challenge for agencies and for clients is just making sure that we allocate budget into the places where it's most needed and we do the right work in the right way. And it should then be not really a battle between AI and traditional methods, but more of an understanding of where they can support each other and how AI can augment traditional processes and where traditional processes can enhance the way that we're using machines and machine learning.
Yeah. What we're learning, of course, is you need to be really surgical, right, with your prompts on AI. Prompt engineering is becoming a field. I have a theory, and it could be, we'll have to see how it plays out. My theory is that market researchers, practitioners, are going to become very good at prompts. Oh, I can't believe we're almost done here. I just put a timer on. Just as I suspected, they expect us to solve a 70-year problem in 30 minutes. This just wouldn't happen. But however, I just want to share my theory. I think that market researchers are going to become very savvy at AI prompt engineering, asking AI to look at the right data, to come to the conclusions that they need to in order to deliver actionable insights. I think that is going to become part of the researcher's toolkit, is being able to devise really effective prompts or having a technology that for a more agile solution. I don't know if you agree with that, but I do think that will play. I think that market researchers are going to have to become good at prompt engineering,
Yeah,
good at figuring out a task.
I completely agree. And I mean, there are fields where that already seems to be the key skill. Like a lot of designers now really are using large language models in order to create the first draft of everything that they do. And their skill is in giving feedback to the machine more than creating things from scratch themselves. And I think that's definitely where we're headed. I think a combination of that and having really carefully curated data sets, which our AI tools pull from, will be the sort of the next step of where this goes. At the moment, so much of the work is done by asking ChatGPT, which isn't current and is very broad and relies on a unknown set of information. But soon we'll be moving into personalized, privatized, owned environments where we can ask, read all of the reports that Material's ever written and make some suggestions for how we should design a study for this client in this industry. And I think that's probably not far away at all and definitely very exciting.
Most definitely. And, Fuel Cycle is excited to be working on that. And we're paying a lot of very, very close attention to privacy issues, making sure that we have a cordoned off, API pipe that is private so that our clients' data is protected. So these are all, talking about the future. We have a question that I'd like to share. One is, this is a good question too. Our teams are really siloed. How have you seen that work in a tech consolidation where there is so little communication? Madam, you brought this up a few times, all these teams working, doing their own research. I'd like you to take a crack at that one, because silos are tough, really tough.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one to answer without understanding the business in question and how the organizational structure creates these silos. I think the conversation we had about making insights more continuous and more bite-sized can only support this. And I think that will build trust within organizations for the insights teams. So I think that I would encourage people to involve their stakeholders often and early in the process to help them understand what they're doing and not let them receive information blind at the end of the process. And I think that will, I guess it's just a push and a pull thing. The push is from the insights team, but that will generate some of the pull where people are really asking for insights and wanting to use insights and not just having them pushed on them, which is sometimes where they have been in less integrated businesses.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think this is an anonymous attendee, so I'm not sure who asked the question, but anonymous, you're absolutely right. It is really difficult to do any kind of tech consolidation or find efficiencies across research teams when they're siloed and they're not talking. And so I think it really has everything to do with leadership. And whether that's the insights leader, whether that's kind of head of insights, who sort of takes the helm and says, we're going to figure out how to drive consolidation. And sometimes that requires forcing the event, really creating a scenario where teams must collaborate. And then I also think it's great to engage a partner in strategy who uses the insights. Where do these insights mean the most? Is it your brand team? Is it your corporate marketing team? Get a few allies in each of those as supporters, allies, fans, to say the consolidation of the insights functions is going to mean the world to our ability to operate as one firm, even though there are lots of different agendas across a firm. I think it takes leadership to say, and it's not only about the synergies, not only about the commercials, it really is about what Matt was talking about earlier, and that is being able to leverage insights across the organization and in a longitudinal way. It's a system of learning. You can't have a system when that system is comprised of a number of silos, right? A system has to work together. So I do think that leadership is the key there. Somebody taking the helm, making the decision and saying, we're going to try this. And it might take a few tries because, silos are hard to dismantle, but I think it's worth it. And I think that anyone who has gone through a de-siloing of an organization will tell you that, well, it's painful, like a C5 getting off the ground, tons of torque, but then once you reach cruising altitude, you can just reach so many efficiencies, and it's more fun to work across. When you're working in a cross-functional manner, it's more fun to work with folks that are working on different problems because you can get different ideas from those colleagues. So one more question. In your opinion, how do you strike the right balance between relying on data-driven insights and intuition when anticipating customer needs. Where's Malcolm Gladwell when we need him? Matt, you want to try
Yeah,
this one?
this is a big one. It's a really
Good
difficult
one.
one.
It's a good
I
question.
think, I mean, I think that the more continuous the stream of data, the more intuition can be relied on. And it shouldn't feel just like intuition, because it should be so highly informed and so consistently informed that people should start to trust themselves. I guess the best way to do this is to start making hypotheses and testing things and seeing what works and seeing how good your intuition is. And you may find that some things that previously seemed very difficult to answer without the input of consumers actually end up in the same place that they would have done had you not spoken to people. I think that's the way to work it out, but it's not an easy question, and I don't think anyone has a great answer for it yet.
My team just we actually just had this conversation, and we did a little workshop. What customers hate? That's literally what it was called. And we did breakouts. What do your customers hate? You know, what is it that they can't stand, either about working with us or in general? Someone brought up Steve Jobs and how he really he did not trust market research. He felt like his intuition was going to beat market research any day. Again, it's anonymous. I don't know who posted this, but if you go on Apple's website and look at careers, there are dozens and dozens of insights positions. So it's a great soundbite. Let's rely on intuition. They don't know what they want. I mean, you know, the old saying, what was it, Henry Ford that said, I asked people what they'd want, a faster horse, right? And which kind of just great sound bites. At the end of the day, market sizing, you know, the line extensions that we have to be responsible for, you know, discrete choice and what customers want. You really want to take a gamble on that on intuition. I think all the intuition we hear about, it's a great story for founders. You know, we started in a garage. We didn't ask anyone. We did what we wanted. But when it comes down to doing business, good business, it's hard to find a company with longevity that hasn't used insights, that hasn't had the market research function, CX, UX. So, I mean, I love that. I do think that intuition is important. I just don't know that I don't think it's used as much as the stories tell us. So that's just my opinion. Well, I think, Matt, we've gone over time. So Victoria is probably going to be sending us a note saying it's time to end the conversation. Any last comments or thoughts while we wrap up today?
No, not at all. But this was great. We should do it again. I hope everyone found it interesting. You know, we're always here to talk if people have further thoughts or want to dig into this more. But it was a great conversation. Thanks for the time, Paul.
I agree. Thank you, Matt. It's been a pleasure spending this time with you. And all of you who are listening to our webinar, we really appreciate it. The recording will be available on the Fuel Cycle or Material websites. And we hope you'll join us for our next webinar. Thanks, and have a great rest of the week. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Polly. Bye.